Okay then, let's get these motherfudgers done. This is Pie Factory and clones. Now, I am very much aware that Cheerful Pessimist has already done a video on the method, so I'm not going to dwell too much on that because it's already been done. However, I would like to talk about these machines from a historical perspective and why they were particularly interesting when they first came out. Starting with this one in the middle here, which is Pie Factory on a £15 jackpot. I'll try and play and chat at the same time, which hasn't worked very well up to now, but we'll have a go. Now, when this machine first came out, it was towards, I'd say, the mid-back end of the... I'd say the mid to back end of the £15 era, which was when I was first starting to get a bit of a clue, the embryonic stages of not being absolutely clueless when it came to fruit machines. Now, I'll be the first to admit that really all I knew how to do was force. I would just force everything that I came across because I'd learned how to force bar crests. And bar crests were all over the place at the time, so you kind of did okay by just forcing machines. Even though I didn't delineate between, bar crests, JPMs, aces, whatever, I would just force anything I came across, whether I should have forced them or not. But it kind of worked out okay, so this was the point in time when I was actually starting to make some money out of fruit machines for the first time ever. We're going to about this period of time when Pie Factory was released on a £15 jackpot. Now, the interesting thing about this machine was, well, there were two things. First of all, it didn't respond to a force very well at all, because when they first turned up, and they turned up kind of en masse, that they were a popular machine, they didn't respond well to a force because one of two things was happening. First of all, they'd either be blocking at £2, which they block here, £2 on the cash stack, £2 on the sort of super pie meter game here, or the third feature up, which counts as a £2 block as well. So they were either blocking at £2, in which case, you could get like 3-4 features and not be offered more than £2 and think, well, what's going on here then? Or if they weren't blocking at £2, if you offered 3-4 quid or more features or a bit more cash up there, then you'd force it out and you'd get one jackpot. That'd be it. They wouldn't repeat. There'd be no streak. There'd be nothing. It was a machine that it seemed almost impossible to win on. And it was not just me who was having this experience, because at this time, Fruit Forums was in full swing. Now, Fruit Forums, basically one of the earliest fruit machine emulation communities on the internet, was in full force at this point, and we were all chatting about various machines. Obviously, it was an emulation forum, but we were all, if you're into fruit machine emulation, you're going to be there because you're into real fruit machines. So we were talking about Pie Factory, and we were all having the same experience on it, namely that you couldn't seem to win on it. It was either blocking like a bastard at £2, and that was it, or you'd force it out, you'd get a jackpot, it wouldn't repeat, it wouldn't streak, and that was it. So there was a guy at the time called Munster. I do remember his forum name was Munster, M-U-N-S-T-A. Now, at the time, he worked in a pub. Oh, that's a nice lemon spin. That'll do. Now, at the time, he was a barman in a pub. Hopefully I'll win this. There we are, we'll exchange over. I'll get back to that in a moment. It's not invincible, right? Okay, that's fine. So we'll just go around. Just excuse me here. Probably shouldn't have done that, to be honest, but we'll do that. It'll go invincible next time. Right, okay, yeah, back to where I was. So there's a guy called Munster who was a barman in a pub, and we were all chatting about this machine, and he basically made it his mission to find out what was going on with this machine, because there was a Pie Factory in the pub where he worked. And he was reporting back on Fruit Forums, yeah, okay, what seems to be happening with this machine? There's like people come in several times a day. They're not locals. I don't recognise them. They're clearly just there to play the machine. They buy a half a Coke or whatever. They're not there to be in the pub. They're just there for the machine. They go over, and one of two things happens. They either put a 2 or 3, 4, 5 quid in, and then leave the machine within 2 or 3 minutes, or they get involved and they win like 2 jackpots. That was the big thing on this. They win 2 jackpots. That should go. There we are now. Okay, and this was what they were doing. So basically, one of 2 things will be happening on this machine. It'll either be blocking at 2 quid, and it absolutely blocks solid at 2 quid, or it will be climbing above £2, either £2 there, £2 there, or more than the 3rd feature up. Now, when that's happening, you basically do this. So you get to upper crust, you collect upper crust, and you let it time out. So this guy Munster said, okay, I'm going to watch this machine because it's in my pub. I can get line of sight from the bar. The players won't really know that I'm watching them. I think they had CCTV in there, something like that. But one way or another, this guy got most of the method from watching the machine. And then I got, I think it was a PM or an email, which gave me the couple of little bits of, the couple of missing pieces, and that was it. I had the pie factory method. And it was basically this. It's not even a pie factory method. It's a vivid method. And it's like there's 2 internal pots in the machine, and you can get them both ready to jackpot one after the other. Now, Cheerful Pessimist did this slightly differently to how I did this out in the wild. What I did was check that the block was off. If the block's off, I then play for real wins, and I just gambled up to the red 7s and exchange over. It will sometimes go invincible on the first exchange over, or sometimes it will take 2 exchanges to go red. Once you've got the invincible exchange, you just take the feature stack straight away, gamble up to upper crust, and let it time out. So you take nothing off an invincible board. What that then does is effectively saves the jackpot on the feature stack, and the cash stack is basically ready to gamble to the jackpot. So you've then got 2 jackpots in the bank, as it were. So that should now spin in the air. Oh shit. Sorry, that's my fault. I forgot what I had fucking holds for there. So let's not be a complete dick. I mean, we're fairly dickish there. I was too busy gassing and actually forgot what I had the hold for then. It turned out it was the invincible board. But you can see you can't really, as long as you don't collect anything at this point, you can't really mess it up. So we'll just collect upper crust again, because it's an invincible board. And this is quite unusual, I suppose, in that it's a feature that you can get nothing off. So you're supposed to hit these the hold buttons down the bottom there. Just hit nothing, it'll time out, and you'll get £0 and 0 pence. There we are. And the alpha screws up a bit as well. That's not an emulator issue, by the way. That was the real machine did this as well. You get weird random characters in the display. Now then, next time I get a win on this, it should gamble up to the jackpot. So we'll just... There we are. That should be cherries. Now, cherries, this should gamble all the way to the jackpot. And this was exactly what you did out in the wild. And once I found out about this, once I had the whole method, I went from loathing the sight of these things because they were either dead or I couldn't force them, to actively seeking them out. I went looking for these bastards. I really did. I scoped out my entire hometown, which I already knew anyway. But I would get in my car. I would jump in my car to try and find these things. Any nearby pubs, or even not that nearby, I'd drive out to Peel to try and find these. There we are, that'll do. And on my lunch break at work, I would just go around the pubs of Douglas. I'd walk around, I'd look through the windows, I'd walk into the pub, pretend that I was looking for someone. Oh, I'm just here to meet somebody, just so I could clock the fruit machines if they had these. I would drive to the sort of slightly out of town fruit machines, the slightly out of town pubs, to see what fruit machines they had, because it was worth tracking these things down because there was good money to be made. Now, the idea now is that I've already had my cash jackpot, as it were. All I'm after now, that should go red. That should be an invincible board. There we are. That's now in an invincible board. And what we do now is try and get the hot. So I think it's fire it up we want off there. There we are, fire it up. And this is the one that can go past. Now, in my experience, the original jackpot repeat that you got never repeated. It was this follow-on thing that could actually... Right, now that's the thing that can go past. Now, I remember having on this, geez, even on a £15 jackpot, I think, 60 quid, 75 quid. If nobody else was doing it, this follow-on here could go pretty big. And these were fairly decent money earners. Like I say, they were worth travelling for. So I think the interesting thing about these machines is the period of time that they arrived in. Because let's say Pie Factory emerged 5 years earlier, I don't think it would have got anything like the attention it did. The thing is, in the early 2000s, you know, people were on the internet, people had mobile phones, people were communicating with each other far more readily than they had been. Let's go back 5 years, 1996, 1997, when, you know, the internet was, yeah, it was there, but not everyone was on it, or, you know, not many people had a mobile phone. But when it came to Pie Factory, it was just the right era for people to be talking about this. So, like on Fruit forums, you know, this was a community of people who were discussing this machine and saying, what the fuck is going on with this? There's something going on here, because we were aware that there was something going on with this machine that was not occurring to us through normal play. So it was fairly obvious that there was something going on with it, that was a cheat, a trick, or something like that, and which we were aware existed, because in the early years of the Fruit Machine emulation community, there was talk about, you know, what the stuff that used to go on with the £4.80 jackpot and the £6 jackpot machine. So we were all kind of aware that it was very much a thing. That you know, machines had tricks, they had manipulators, they had emptiers for them. So it seemed entirely reasonable that Pie Factory was one of those, and that there was something going on with it, which was why we became so determined to find out what it was. So when Cheerful Pessimist is talking about, yes, he made a lot of money out of this machine, but he kind of almost regrets its existence in a way because it seemed to bring more people into the game. Well, yeah, that's understandable, because it was just so blatantly obvious that there was something weird going on with this machine, and everyone wanted to know what it was. And even I, at the time, would just force everything, and that seemed to work okay, but it just failed completely with this. And I was then curious, okay, what's going on with this machine? What's different about this machine? There's clearly a method that I'm not aware of here. Oh shit, it's actually on Invincible straight away. So let's just, we'll go up to Strike It Rich, because we haven't gambled out on the cash side. And the interesting thing with this here is that you can find that the feature pot, if you will, is invincible, while the cash pot is not invincible. And the idea is, the whole point of this method is that you get them both ready to go at the same time. So we'll collect that. And this is effectively, I'm bearing in mind that these machines are straight clones of each other. So this here, Strike It Rich, is just upper crust. These are 3 of the clones. Pie Factory was the original, then you had Giant Gems and 6 Shooter. I've got it in my head that there might have been another, I'm not sure, but certainly there were other Vivid machines where the same... Oh shit, I've got another... I didn't even realise. Sorry, I'm not even looking at what I'm doing there. Whoa, we'll collect that right now. There are other Vivid machines that did this. Cliffhanger was one where the same basic principle worked, even though it wasn't a clone of these machines. The same basic principle that you could get 2 pots ready at the same time applied to that. So it was kind of more like a Vivid method. It was something in their code. It had first appeared in the... Well, it was in the £15 jackpot versions right from the off. And then it survived into the £25 upgrades. Pie Factory here got a £25 chip, and that could still be done exactly the same. I remember doing a lot of these Giant Gems on a £25 jackpot and 6 Shooter. But with 6 Shooter, that was the first one that I saw that was chipped. It was kind of quite odd because they all disappeared from the pubs at about the same time. They were everywhere, and then they were all gone, and then they appeared again. Just exchange over. Let's have a look. Invincible. Yeah, and then they appeared again, but not in the same numbers they'd existed. And I remember a 6-shooter here appearing back in a pub after a fair kind of stay of absence, thinking, okay, right, yeah, this is going to be chipped, isn't it? And indeed it was chipped. But you can well understand, so we'll just collect that. Now, what I've got now is I've got a jackpot stored on that side, and this should gamble out next time. And this, of course, because it's a £25 jackpot, this will be 50 quid instead of 30 quid, and they could go past. So let's do that again. But yeah, what I was saying there, you can well understand why these machines were kind of pounced upon by the entire player and non-player community, because there was kind of like a crossover. Because the player community was into them because they were making good money off them, but the non-player community, I think, was into them as well because they were like really, really curious to find out what was going on. And I do remember that chat at Fruit Forums at the time. This should win now. I do remember that chat at Fruit Forums at the time because we were all super, super keen to find out what was going on with this machine. So, same thing. Basically the same as we just saw on Pie Factory, except it's 25 quid instead of 15 quid. And we should now have an invincible feature stored up, ready to take. That will never repeat. In my experience, it's the actual feature side of things that can repeat, but it's probably not going to happen here. Okay, we got a feature there, that's good. Because every time I load these up, I just kind of do the method on them. That should be red, that should be red, that should be red. There we are. And we're just going for the TT things, TNT even. And that'll be 50 quid. What bonus do we want? We'll go for skill stop now. That will get us a TNT. But yeah, these were. Oh, it might just fill up. These were the last machines that I can really remember being bothered to travel for. Like I said, I would drive around for these. I'd go out on my lunch break to try and find them. I'd go to the pub after work to go and do them, all that kind of thing. And there was some pretty rude cash to be made out of these. I think I want extra TNT, as it fire it up, or whatever it's called. Lighter fuse, that should be it. There we are. Yeah, these were worth making the time for because there was, for a period of time, these represented some pretty substantial profits. Certainly if you went out to like a foodie type pub out on the outskirts of town where nobody else had visited. I think it was one of them where I had a Pie Factory on a £15 jackpot go for 75 quid. It had clearly never been done before. And then you would just get into the routine of how often it was worth visiting them thereafter. And then they all got chipped, and that was the end of it. But it's an interesting machine, I think, because from a player perspective, they made good money. But from a casual perspective, it really piqued the interest because, like, yeah, we want to understand what's going on here. And I very much remember that being the case at Fruit Forums back in the day. There we are. Now, this is the thing that can go on. I honestly don't think it's going to do it in the emulator here because I just keep cycling this method around. It's quite good fun just to load it and go through it again. There we are, but we'll have a go. Let's see. Are you going to go on? Yes, no. Oh, I have to put a credit in. And it's a cave-in, as we were expecting. So in simple terms, what do? You get on there, you check that the £2 block is off, first and foremost, so you play, and that won't cost much. That'll cost you 5, 6, 7 quid tops. If the £2 block is off, and this is the way I did it, Cheerful Pessimist did it slightly differently, but once you're happy that the £2 block is off, you just play for real wins. Cherries, mix sevens, doesn't matter. And you just gamble up, gamble up, gamble up. And eventually it will cave and gamble for the red sevens. You then exchange over. It's probably going to be invincible. If it's not, you just kill the board off and then do it again. Certainly on the second exchange over from red sevens, it will always go invincible. You gamble up for upper crust or the third feature on the top, collect it, let it time out. Your next climb up the cash trail will guaranteed gamble out to the jackpot, and then the next feature after that will be invincible. I always played for the sort of mega streaky type thing on there, and that's the one that can repeat. So fundamentally, that is Pie Factory. That's the method on this. It was an interesting one for several reasons, which I hope I've covered in this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll do something different next time. Got some more older machines coming up for the next one, but I think this was just worth covering. So I'll see you next time. Goodbye.